And now, a math lesson. Let's say the Zaxby's chicken finger plate comes with 4, 5, or 6 hand-breaded fingers and 1 side of Zax sauce. Plus, you can try them with Zax sauce, honey mustard, hot honey mustard, tongue torch, teriyaki, wimpy, nuclear, barbecue ranch, sweet and spicy, insane. How many possible combinations does that make? Carry the 2 with the remainder... a lot. Zaxby's chicken finger plate. The sauceabilities are endless.
From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It is Wake Up Warchant. Welcome to 2021, everybody. We're still proudly presented to you by Zaxby's Indescribably Good. Shout out to the big homie Drew Singletary, also known as Mr. Clutch _1992 on Twitter, Corey. You ever think about changing your name on Twitter? Give yourself some sort of, self-styled moniker. You know, just like Mr. Deadline, Deadline Beater _6969XX.
No, I haven't done that. It's all. If I had started it when I was in college, absolutely. Who knows what my moniker would have been?
Drew says, how about wings and things with the spicy mushrooms on a rainy day? At Wake Up Warchant, at you and I, at Zaxby's. Does look quite delicious. And boy, golly, did it rain this weekend, man. I hope things were a little bit better up in the Peach State, man. What a dreary way of ring in 2021. You know, I'm like,
Yeah,
come on,
it was pretty gross.
Can we get some sun, please? That'd be cool.
It was pretty gross up here too. But I mean, you know, I was going to be at home either way, so you know, it was all right. I guess if it was pretty outside or like at least like 50 and no rain, maybe I could have gone to a buddy's house and hung out on the porch or in his backyard or something. But no, just in front of the fire watching. But I tell you what, guys, I haven't done it. I don't know that I've ever done it. Like watch the New Year's Eve shows as they roll in, like the Anderson Cooper one and the Ryan Seacrest one and the Fox one. But oh boy, I don't know how y'all do it. I mean, it's rough to watch. I like being at parties and talking to people and not being subjected to that stuff. Holy moly. Like at least the Anderson Cooper one got better closer to midnight because they were just hammered.
Yeah,
but from like 8 to 10, they're like interviewing the lady from, was it Tiger King? And what's her name? Baskin?
Carol Baskin.
Carol Baskin was on there, and oh man,
why did Cyndi Lauper get a stage? What's going on? Why was Cyndi Lauper performing? I thought she was performing on someone's show.
Brandy was performing on one of the shows. I didn't even know Brandy was around. I mean, I know she's not old enough to be dead, but I mean, I guess technically we're all old enough to be dead. But I knew she was younger than me, but I haven't seen Brandy sing a song in 20 years.
Yeah.
Same thing with Cyndi Lauper. Yeah, it's just. That's rough stuff to watch, but they have 4.5 hours to fill. But at least on CNN, they're drinking and getting drunk. But man,
hopefully the rain's washed away all the bad juju from 2020 as we look forward to a new year. Also over on Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source. Promo code is Warchant30. That gives you 30 free days of access to the website. Nice story that dropped later on Sunday night, some transfer portal names on the defensive line to perhaps keep in mind for Florida State as they try to bolster this roster. They did get a potential playmaker out wide on New Year's Eve. Shout out to your guy, Michael Langston, everybody, grinding, hollering at me, trying to get me to record a video on New Year's Eve. But I didn't have the phone near me, so I didn't see it. But anyhow, Andrew Parchment, I think we might have discussed him for a little bit on one of the shows last week or maybe the week before, but originally from Cypress Bay High School down in Fort Lauderdale. I think he was at Northern Illinois in 17, JUCO 18, then Kansas for 19 and 20. Has committed to Florida State, so that gives you somebody with some dynamic ability on the outside. His best season was 19 when he caught 65 passes for 831 yards and 7 touchdowns. So that's a pretty solid little bit of a stat line there. And, hey, man, just, you know, maybe just a rich man's Pokey perhaps, you know. And then you got Pokey himself and Keyshawn in the slot. And who knows, man, rocket ship, Hawaiian, laser thrower, let's go.
Okay, I liked it. You're excited, maybe in a cynical way, but you're still excited. Look, I don't know what other receivers are out there right now, but I'll say the same thing. On the surface, looking at the other receivers that were on the market, there aren't a ton of other better options, right?
No.
So that's good. Same thing with what they did at defensive end. Obviously, same thing with what they did at quarterback. They seem to be getting some real, best available options. Again, we're in January. I don't know what it's going to look like at the end of this month. I don't know what it's going to look like in June. But for right now, they are getting about the best they can hope to get at positions of need so far. They need more. But, yeah, getting that what I really like about him, it's not just the 65 catches. It's that he had, I think, 4 games with over 100 yards. I don't know that there's a receiver on the Florida State roster that's had a 100-yard receiving game. This guy's had four in one season, had multiple touchdowns in a couple of games. So that to me is a good sign that a guy that can have big games, not just to catch here or there, but makes plays, makes first downs. Had a couple 70-yard catches. That's good. That's fun. He's coming from Kansas, so all the stuff I said about all the stuff I said. Sorry, Stephanie just ripped through my computer like I wasn't sitting here. That was something.
Go
you're
Brownies.
still there, right?
Go Brownies, by the way, Steph. Shout out.
Oh, she was really excited. I'd never. I don't think I've ever. I mean, she literally started crying after they won, which was unexpected, but understandable because it's been a long time. I think it has a lot to do with their dad who passed away, which was a huge Browns fan. So she was thinking about him, I'm sure. But that's the good thing about sports. It gets us in those moments. But back to the important stuff. Life and death, dads, memories. That's not important. I want to talk about Andrew Parchment, receiver from Kansas. But yeah, I just think that's a good sign that he's had those kind of games. Now, all the stuff I was saying about the osmosis of Mackenzie Milton bringing a winning attitude and Jermaine bringing in the fight of a Georgia defense and what that looks like and how that could be a positive around other players. I don't know that you want Andrew Parchment bringing anything about Kansas with him. You know what I mean? Leave that in Lawrence, buddy. Yeah. It's okay if Mackenzie brings some Central Florida stuff. You obviously want some Athens stuff coming to your defense, but leave all the Kansas stuff from behind, man. Leave it all behind because they were 0-7 this year, right? They were terrible. He didn't have a good year. Nobody on the team had a good year. So leave that all in Lawrence and come be a part of a new system and a new program.
Yeah, bad quarterback play. I think they had like a 17-year-old literally was their starting quarterback in a few games. To your point, though, 19, really strong season from him. Started the season off with 121 yards against an FCS team, but whatever. Then 100 yards and 2 scores against Boston College, 132 yards, 2 scores against West Virginia. Had 83 yards against Texas, 109 yards against Texas Tech. Had a touchdown against both those teams. 86 yards against my man crush Matt Campbell in Iowa State back in 19. So, yeah, man, a guy that when he's had a good quarterback, the number one target was able to perform.
And I thought he had a pretty good game in the first game of the season. Maybe 19. Before the no, in 20. I thought in 20 he had a pretty good game.
Yeah, Coastal 6 for 54 and a touchdown. That's we'll take that.
I mean, 6. That was a quarter of his catches this year. I think maybe their quarterback got hurt in that game. Or whatever that was, and that was Coastal. That might have been one of the better teams they played.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, 6 catches, 54 yards, nothing to sneeze at.
I do
but
wonder.
Then that season was bad. He did not have good numbers in 2020.
Yeah, I do wonder where this staff is in terms of patience or playing out the string in the portal because they couldn't have seen what was going to happen, obviously, with the pandemic and then the floodgates kind of opening up in the summer with guys wanting to leave the Pac-12 and the Big Ten schools because they didn't know whether they were going to play or not. But I do wonder, like, if they're going to be really eager and try to clean up house here in the next, come February, or if they're going to leave. Are they going to try to leave 2 or 3 open?
Did I just lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
You just zoned me out, just naturally. You just went on.
No, literally, like you stopped. I didn't hear anything.
No.
I'm sure it was really informative and entertaining and insightful. I didn't hear it.
Very profound.
Okay.
But I just wonder, basically, 2020 they kind of stocked up pretty quickly in the portal, where they got Dotson and Devontae Love-Taylor and, Deontay Williams and, you got Jarian. Well, they got Jarian and Fabian, I think, a little bit later in the process after, Mike Leach faux pas or what have you. But I just wonder if they're going to try to – now they have 20 guys, including transfer portal and high school players that they signed in that early period. So they got 20 seats taken. They have 5 spots left.
Right.
Taiwan Malone, that dual sport prospect from New Jersey, I think, is going to be on campus here, I think, this week on a visit. Destin Hill, wide receiver out of Louisiana, is a guy they're still trying to go heavy after. But I do wonder, are they going to try to get it all sorted out now, or will they try to leave a few for the summer? Because, to your point, I think the portals, I think this is it, kind of. I don't know how many guys are really going to – are you going to want the kind of guy that becomes available in June? I think the guys now – will kind of have their exit interview with their coach at the end of the season, figure out where they are in the long-term plans, and be like, yeah, there's no point in me sticking around spring and trying to, maybe work my way up. Let me go somewhere else new. So,
well, the only thing I would say to that
I want it all done
is,
now.
Yeah, I know, and I think the vast majority has already been filled. I don't know how many. If you haven't entered the transfer portal already, why haven't you? Unless you're, Alabama or Ohio State, and I doubt there are going to be a lot of guys transferring out of those programs to Florida State. But I feel like there's probably a couple of spots still left, and you also don't know if college coaches leave and take other jobs. Yeah. That's when, again, a portal can, like if Matt Campbell decides to go somewhere, then all of a sudden, hey, maybe the other Purdy wants to come to Florida State. Yeah.
Or if Dan Mullen goes to the Jets.
Yeah, then you can go get
Emory Jones.
They're good players that are
left.
left.
Don't need Emory Jones. I don't even know anybody else. Thank God they were losing all their good guys, which sort of segues into the column that you wrote. That I don't know, is there a distinctive flair and style to the Corey Clark column, like iambic pentameter? Do you have your own? I feel like you have this. It's amazing to me, just the captivated audience that you hold. And it's just like you're the puppet master with your strings, like dance my marionettes, clap for me, give me validation. Because the whole crux of your column was pretty much, hey, everybody else is going to kind of maybe start sucking a little bit, so let's feel good about it. But then you do these nice little parts in there where you're like, listen, I realize this is kind of a ridiculous premise, but just follow along.
Well, and you're putting words into my keyboard.
Okay.
I didn't say it was a ridiculous premise. I would say I could understand if people your only sole concern is what Florida State is. And you can't be doing cartwheels and jumping jacks and setting off fireworks because Florida lost 4 guys. You know what I mean? Or Miami lost a bowl game. Florida State wasn't even in a bowl game. So the celebration has to be
personal
tempered.
Personal choice, though, Corey. We decide to sit it out,
Sure, but obviously the celebration and the feel good needs to be tempered. But look, there's no way that Clemson's going to be better next year.
Yeah.
They're just not. You don't lose the players that they're losing and get better. And I like that quarterback they have. But they're also losing the best running back in school history. I'm sure they're loaded. They got other guys. But look, Dalvin Cook, we all knew when Dalvin Cook left, they got a really good guy right behind him. This is probably a bad example, but Cam Akers wasn't as good as Dalvin Cook. That's the reality of the situation. DJ Ugalele, I don't want to disrespect the guy. I can't know Ugalele. DJ isn't as good as Trevor Lawrence. He's not going to be.
Maybe he'll be better when they play in New Orleans, though. What a choker! Trevor Lawrence, you put him in New Orleans,
400 yards, didn't he?
Bum.
Yeah, he was terrible. So he's not going to be as good as Trevor Lawrence. The odds of him being the number 1 pick in the draft and going 35-2 are slim. And you also lose your best running back. You're losing, guys on both sides. They're going to take a step back, not a huge step. They're not leaping back and they're not falling off a cliff. It's Clemson. Miami, same thing. Look, De'Aaron King will probably be healthy for the start of their season, but what happened to their defense? And they're losing good guys off that defense.
And staff members. I think they're 2 of their dudes are going to Utah State. Have fun in Logan, Utah. I think.
So there's some weird things going on at Miami where you wonder what exactly did happen with that defense over the last few games. That was really bizarre. And then Florida, obviously. They lost probably, you could argue the best throwing quarterback they've ever had And I saw Danny Werfel play.
Ooh.
Danny Werfel was loaded with wide receivers running up against cornerbacks that had no idea that teams threw the ball like that. Like Riddell Anthony,
Right.
Ike Hilliard, Jacquez Green, and you got DBs at Georgia that are used to 18 pass attempts a game from the opposing offense. They just couldn't compete with those. And Fred Taylor. I mean, he had some really dynamic playmakers. So I'm a big fan of Werfel. Well, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, come on.
He seems like a good person. And I
Game
quite
recognized
obviously,
game.
yeah, exactly.
He figured
just like
this
Florida fans, I think, understand how the brilliance of Warwick Dunn. I would think most Florida State fans understand that Danny Werfel was incredible. But Kyle Trask was really good this last year. He was incredibly good. And so you not only do you lose him, you lose all of his weapons. And you've got a crazy coach that says crazy things all the time. And they just lost. They're going into next season on a 3-game losing streak. So again, Florida State has to worry about Florida State. Obviously, Florida State has to get better, but it does not hurt in recruiting. It does not hurt in perception. It does not hurt in reality that if you're trying to catch these teams, and those are the 3 main teams you care about, obviously, if you're trying to catch those teams, it helps if they slow down a little. Now you've got to speed up. As I said in the column, you got to get out of the starting block. It doesn't matter if they pull a hammy if you're still stuck in the starter's block. But if you get out of the starter's block and they're slowing down a little, well, yeah, that's how you catch programs.
I do wonder. I mean, I get what you're saying. I just wonder how. I mean, it's Florida State. You're never too far out of the fight. But I do wonder if this is like Jeff Bezos has. The market has a bad day. Like boo-hoo, Jeff Bezos just lost 3% of his fortune. If you're Dabo, let's say, I mean, Dabo is probably Jeff Bezos in this example. Like, yeah, you're going to be okay. The CEO at Xerox, a once proud, mighty brand, probably hurting a little bit more than Jeff Bezos. So and that's the thing. Like, I understand that we're chasing Clemson, but my focus, my hatred always remains centered on Florida. If they lose that coach, which I don't know. Again, there's a tweet out there from somebody that said that Mullen would go to the Jets, which that doesn't mean the Jets are interested in him. I do think he would leave for the NFL. He's one of those guys. I talked to my buddy who's a Florida guy because you and me and I are actually it was Ira and I, and you were just living your life, having fun. Ira and I are sitting at home being bored, arguing about things.
Man, there are some folks. I just want you all to know there are some times where I'm not around my phone or I'm I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sleeping or I'm hanging out with my kid, and I'll get my phone back, and I have 58 missed texts, and it's all from one group text. It's all from Ira and Aslan going back and forth. And I hate to break this to you now, and I know he listens sometimes. I'll be honest, man. I don't go scroll up and read what y'all are talking about. I just can't do it. I can't scroll up and read through 40 messages.
That's fine. That's why we have the podcast, and I can talk to you about it.
That's right.
But I just. I mean, I think he would go to the Jets. I don't know if the Jets are going to offer him. But talking to my buddy who's a Florida fan, because I think most Florida fans like Dan Mullen a lot. Like all the things that we make fun of them for, the pack the swamp and dressing up like Darth Vader and all the
I don't know if they like that stuff.
Well, they deal with it.
I think they tolerate it. Yeah, you tolerate it for the wins.
Yeah.
In that offense. So remember, man, it's not just that he's won games. I mean, McElwain won 8 games. 9 games. McElwain made it as far as Mullen made it. But this offense was really fun to watch. And it had been over a decade since they had an offense worth celebrating and being excited about. You know what I mean? So I think that matters to him too. It's not just that he's winning. It's the way they're winning. I mean, they were one of the 5 best offenses in the country this year.
Yeah. So
he's a good coach. He's a weird dude, but he is a good coach.
Well, a lot of that stuff that makes him weird, Ira thinks, for a lot of Florida fans, is rubbing them the wrong way. I think, to your point, like they'll tolerate it. So I was texting my buddy, Manhattan Mike, who's a Florida alum, and I'm like, hey, man, you might lose your coach, though. And he's like, nah, he wouldn't leave. He's like, Dabo would leave for the NFL before Mullen. And I'm like, I absolutely not.
I would disagree with that.
100%. Dabo
100%.
wants absolute control. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He ain't going to – like Mullen, I think, he wants money and notoriety.
Imagine Dabo's shtick in New York.
Anywhere,
with that media,
Denver,
with that fan base. I mean, it can't. He is in a perfect spot.
Oh, yeah.
He is in a perfect spot where they will rename the school after him in a few years if he keeps going the way he's going. I can't imagine him ever leaving for the pros.
but I do think there's a lot of validity in what you're saying, though, because, yeah, Florida State, if they want to catch up for as much, elbow grease as Mike Norvell and burning the midnight oil and whatever cliche you want to throw in there, they need everybody else around them to kind of drop back too. They need them to fall kind of out of orbit to catch up. I don't think Florida State can just sprint and catch up with everybody. They're going to have to drop the baton. They're going to have to slow up a little bit. And I think Florida, I want to believe that Florida's more of a practical target to catch up to and and pass by. Because, we did see kind of what they look like without all those great weapons, without Kyle Pitts and without Tony and without Trevon Grimes. And they looked horrible.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, though, is, kind of coming on a little bit strong this year. But I don't know. Clemson, I still think they're kind of in that Alabama stratosphere where they're just going to reload. Yeah, the guy's not going to be as good as Trevor Lawrence, but he'll be probably head and shoulders better than everybody else in the ACC. Or at least, I don't know. I like McKenzie. I got to be on the McKenzie train if I feel good about Florida State in 2021. So maybe I'll walk that back a little. But yeah, and then Miami, I don't know. Miami's just been so insignificant for so long. I think I play the role of you on Seminole Headlines on this podcast, where like, when are they going to come back? When's Miami coming back? It's never happening. So like, I just don't concern myself with Miami. Although I realize that they've won, 4 times in a row now. But
yeah, including 52-10.
I digress.
But yeah, and we'll see what they do in the transfer portal too. We'll see.
They got a good linebacker out of Tennessee, but he's from Miami, so kind of to be expected. But yeah, they got a pass rusher, defensive side of the ball.
Oh yeah, the kid from Tennessee.
Yeah.
But I just think, look, I would be surprised if any of those 3 teams, the 3 you care about the most, are better next year. At best, I feel like for all of them, they're stagnant, right? Like I wouldn't be. Yeah. I'm not saying Clemson won't make the playoffs, but they're not going to be preseason number 1. Florida, I don't think is going to sniff of the playoffs next year. I mean, I could be wrong, but their defense was bad this year, and now they won't be able to be bailed out by their offense as much unless he does, magic things with Emory Jones. I just think
he just always schemes.
Yeah, he's good. No, he'll put together a team. But the reason they won 8 games at all was because of the offense. I mean, that was one of the worst defenses in Florida history. But that offense was next level. So again, they won't be able to rely on 40 points a game. You wouldn't think. Next year, they're going to take a step back. You don't lose. I don't think they'll take an LSU type step back, because they weren't as good as last year's LSU team, quite frankly. So if they, I think offensively they could look a lot like LSU did this season. It's hard to lose. It's hard to lose unless you're Alabama. You don't lose guys like that and just pick right back up where you left off. It's just hard. So they won't be as good. Clemson certainly won't be as good. And Miami, I just, that defense, those last the 2 games really gives you a pause about what that team was this year. And I don't think the gap from Florida State and those 3 teams will be as wide as it was this year. I mean, it better not be. I mean, what would Florida and Clemson have done to Florida State? They both would have scored 70, right, if they wanted?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we saw what Miami did. They scored on the first 5 times they touched the ball and had 35 points at halftime and cruised to that win. So I just think the gap will have shrunk a little bit.
That's fair.
Which is what you want. You're right.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to poke fun at the call. I thought that was well timed and valid. People do want to hope, I guess, that Clemson's game against Ohio State was Florida State, Oregon. Like, this was the game, everything came crashing down, and now they're, going to come back down to earth. Was it a cataclysmic event for Clemson? What happened against Ohio State? I thought, Ohio State, whatever. I know they got in on reputation. I was about to unload a freezing cold take before the game about how I thought Clemson was going to destroy Ohio State, especially after they went down the field on their opening possession. But man, they've and again, I don't know, you could probably say this sort of stuff about Florida State in the 90s when they made it to national title games and lost and came up short a few times. But Clemson, when they lose in spectacular fashion. And I don't know how much of like what happened against Ohio State. Like, will there be lingering effects? Did it reveal anything about them? I don't know. Like long term, unsteady sort of foundation they're on? I don't think so, but fans want to believe that.
I think the one thing that would give me a little bit of pause is both lines of scrimmage. If I was a Clemson fan, and again, wouldn't y'all all want to be Clemson fans here for the last few years? I get it. Or if I was covering the football team, the one thing I would give me pause is the line of scrimmage. They got no pressure on that kid, even when they knew he was hurt. They couldn't get pressure, and the offense really struggled running the ball kind of all season. Like Trevor Lawrence can hide some things because of his arm. He's incredible. And Trevor Lawrence can run, just like the kid DJ will be able to run next year. But, that's a really good running back that I think went a couple of months without a 100-yard game. And they just didn't get the push up front that they normally get, that I see. So that, you're losing the first pick in the draft. You're losing a really good running back. You're losing a good receiver. You've got talent, obviously, but you're losing some serious parts. And I just wasn't all that impressed with our offensive lines against good teams. So that might, maybe they're coming back a little bit to earth on the defensive line. That would be nice. But I'm sure I haven't checked their recruiting rankings. I'm sure they've got 5 stars coming in, and they had a 5-star that was a second stringer this year that'll turn out to be good. So maybe it's just wishful thinking.
ATN,
but I don't see quite the parallels between the Oregon loss, only because you were losing so much. Like you lost so much off that team. Florida State did. I mean, you lost 11 draft picks. So that would be that to me that's a little different. And you were taking the drop from Jameis Winston to Sean McGuire / Everett Golson is a much more precipitous drop than the one from Trevor Lawrence to DJ, in my opinion.
ATN ran for 124 in the ACC title game, but otherwise went more than 2 months. He ran for 149 against Miami on October 10th, and he ran for 100 yards in their opener against Wake. So they kind
of struggled a little bit with some teams. Like I know they were in a bit of a game against Syracuse. Virginia hung close with them.
Boston College.
Yeah.
They lost too, man. They lost.
Yeah, they lost to Notre Dame. So without their quarterback, but still they lost to Notre Dame. So they didn't have that air of invincibility maybe that I felt like they had or that they had earlier in the run. That's all.
Well, I sure hope so. I'd like for them to go away. I find Dabo quite odious and annoying, but they're 4th right now in the 2021 team rankings on Rivals.com. 2 5-stars, 14 4-stars.
He is annoying, and that the way he treated Florida State after that cancellation. Look at the ACC basketball schedule right now.
No,
literally, Florida State was supposed to play Duke on Saturday. That was postponed. They're supposed to play Syracuse on Wednesday. That game has already been postponed.
Oh, that has?
Yeah, because
of the contact tracing. Right?
And then there's 2 other games. I think Louisville and North Carolina has been postponed. Another game, the Florida State women's games have been postponed.
Yeah, women's. There's been like the whole week almost has been thrown out. Not just Florida State, but like the whole conference practically.
The Duke women's team decided to stop playing. And then you have one coach in another sport that, I mean, it just boggles the mind that you would look around. A coach, by the way, who completely diminished it when it started out, has been on the wrong side of history with this entire virus this entire time. And then even in November, as we're up to 2,000 or 3,000 people dying a day, he has the audacity to say it's not a COVID. This isn't about COVID. It's not about COVID. It's about something else. It still bothers me. It still bothers me that the ACC had zip to say about it. Meanwhile, what does Dabo think about these postponements and cancellations for basketball? Was Florida State ducking Krzyzewski? Is Boeheim ducking Florida State? Or are we trying to deal with an unseen virus, a never before dealt with virus as best we can and get through a season as best we can? And by gosh, we made it. I'm knocking on wood if I can find some, but we made it through a college football season.
Incredible.
We made it, man. It was tough. We had a playoff team that had 6 games, but we made it. And I get Dabo being upset with Ohio State that Ohio State's in it. And people that listen to this show, and I assume that's you guys since you're listening to this right now, know what I thought about Ohio State being included because their conference is the one that thought they were just going to cancel the entire season and everybody would follow along. So part of me didn't like the fact that they got to still be a part of the game. They still got to be a part of the fun, the party. They got to come to the party even though they tried to cancel the party for all of us. And then, oh, wait, they're actually going to have a party? Well, can we come? Is it okay if we come now? Like, I didn't like that facet of it.
They try to cancel prom, but then they crashed prom and they won prom king.
Yeah.
What a bunch of jerks.
So I get that. I get that perspective. But again, these are just college football players trying to do what they can to play the game that they really love. Obviously, schools are trying to make a ton of money off it too, or trying to keep the lights on, but they're trying to make as much money as they can. But also, these players wanted to play. It's not like Ohio State players were like, please, cancel the season. And so just every opinion he's had about COVID has been wrong. And then he has the audacity and the nerve to say that Florida State's ducking him multiple times. And then no repercussions, no even strongly worded statements from the ACC. And now here we are in January dealing with it even more than we've ever dealt with it before. Let's got to get those vaccines out rolling, folks. But literally there are 5 or 6 basketball games within the conference being postponed each week. Why aren't any other coaches feeling the need to question the motives of the teams that have COVID stoppages? It's just been one coach. Think of all the canceled games in college basketball and football. It's been well over 200, probably 300 postponements anyway.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, in the NFL, there's only been one coach that's had the audacity and the nerve to question the motives of a cancellation or a postponement, and it was that guy. So he gets no sympathy from me. I hope they go 3-8 next year. They won't. They're going to be good. I get it. But it's still, I was thinking about it today, seeing another round of college basketball games getting postponed, thinking, man, I can't believe the nerve of that guy that he did that he said what he said. So I was certainly not unhappy that he got pummeled by one of those Big Ten teams that only played 6 games.
Are we going to go to Clemson next year? Or not next year, it's this year now. Are we going to Clemson this year, or do you think they're going to come back?
I don't know, man. That's a good question. We need to get somebody on the record, ACC or FSU administrated, to talk about that. To me, it wouldn't make sense because look, I would, especially after what Dabo pulled in November, I would if I'm the ACC, I'm like, no, you're going to Florida State. You owe them a game. Florida State does not have to, because look, if the ACC came to Florida State and said, no, yours was 2020. Odd seasons, you go to Clemson. I think Norvell will be like, well, I'm not going. Literally, like, I'm not going. After what he pulled in November, it is unfair that we were only going to have a game with 15,000 fans in it anyway. Yeah. But we owe it to our fan base. We are owed a Clemson home game. Let's are not going to go.
Let's go play in Atlanta.
Oh, well, yeah, you could do that. Sure, you could do that and just split the gate.
Yeah.
I mean, no, Florida State needs the Clemson gate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They need it. They need all of it. So, no, if I'm the Florida State administration, there's no way that I go back to Clemson 2 games in a row. Because Clemson is going to hold back to their, well, it wasn't our fault. We did everything. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't do everything right. You had a guy positive on a plane. You didn't do everything right. Florida State was well within its rights to postpone the game. Whether you agree with them or not, they were well within its rights. That doesn't give you that Florida State shouldn't be punished for that, for following their protocols. That's all. So I would think Florida State would fight really hard to have a Clemson game at home. I mean, they're owed one, just like they're owed a Florida game. Both those games should be on the home schedule next year.
I don't want to sound hokey. I don't want to be the hokey guy on the show. Not that you are. I think we're hokey. We're hokey less, you know. But to your point that we got through the season. And it kind of, I was thinking about this when I was, posting some stuff on Twitter after the A&M game. And, obviously when I, do what I do when it comes to Jimbo, I elicit reaction from people. And, somebody, was talking about, what's the big deal? A&M sucks, yada, yada. Then look at them out there celebrating like they won a playoff game. What a joke. To which, I was thinking about it, as that game was kind of happening, and man, what a great 2 days it was. I did nothing on New Year's Eve but sit around and watch football, and then follow it up on New Year's Day by doing nothing but watching football. Or no, maybe it was the 1st and the 2nd. Yeah, I can't get the days right. What a crazy sort of weekend with the way the dates fell. But anyhow, to the point. Man, I almost want, if there's any player on this show that I ripped on unfairly or just said anything almost critical about, I want to almost personally apologize to them because I can't imagine like really what these guys went through to pull the season off. You know, it's remarkable and like, seeing the way the A&M team celebrated. Like my sort of rebuttal would have been like, dude, like, do you realize what these guys went through to like finally get a season done? And like they won a New Year's Six bowl. They're happy. Like, should they just be cyborgs and just walk back into the locker room and be like, all right?
Was somebody giving them grief for celebrating?
No, somebody tweeted back at me about, A&M, didn't look like a top 14. They celebrated like they won a playoff game.
Oh, right.
To which, whatever. But like it's remarkable, man, that we really did get a season because what these kids went through, getting tested all these times. Not going home and seeing their family for such a long period. I remember watching the Fiesta Bowl, and they were talking about the quarterback from Oregon is actually from Arizona. His family was there to watch him play, and he was going to go home with his parents after the game. And that's probably such a simple, thing that probably a lot of players do during a season. Like their family comes and visits them, and then maybe they spend Sunday with them, and then they go back to campus or what have you. But like the way that the season was thrown on its head for all these kids, and I know we're not supposed to call them kids, but, man, they're 18 to 21, and I would not want to be judged as a man by what I did when I was 19 or 20 years old. Man, they saved my job probably. If there's not a football season, I don't know where I'm at right now. And then for so many people, and it's just crazy to see the way that the season went, and then I guess see Texas fire their coach, hire a new coach, and then be like $40 million invested in paying off Tom Herman, his assistants, his head coach, while like they're furloughing, countless dozens of people on their campus. And all these 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids got, violated up their nose 3 times a week, couldn't really live the full life of a big man on campus. Practiced on weeks on end, like Ohio State, man. There were some games that was their fault. There was other games they couldn't play because of the other team's fault. Like having to constantly go out there, and I think even Ryan Day said that, like constantly go out and practice, and then have players look at you like, coach, another game, another week, we're not playing a game. Just kind of like the resiliency of this generation that we poke fun of so often. They stepped up, man. The kids, they made a season happen.
Well, again, that goes back to me ripping Dabo.
Yeah.
Those Florida State players did really want to play that game. I know we joked about they should try to cancel it because they were going to get pounded, but those guys did practice all week to play that game. Practice is hard for a football player. It's not fun, especially when you're doing it at the crack of dawn. But they did it all. They did it all week. They did it for 6 weeks and played one game. They practiced for 6 weeks and played one game. So I do hope that Florida State fans have at least a soft spot in their hearts for those guys that stuck it out, that played in that Duke game, that were practicing for the Wake Forest game. I do hope that they have a soft spot for them because they did make a really big sacrifice. And the NFL players are making a sacrifice too, but they get a check deposited every 2 weeks in their bank accounts for that sacrifice. I'm not downplaying the cost of an education, the reward of an education, and they get scholarship money and they get stuff paid for. I get it, but it is a far different thing to have $75,000 or $280,000 deposited in your bank account every 2 weeks as opposed to books. They did it. They did it for themselves. They did it for the university. They did it for us. Whatever the case may be, they did it and they gave us entertainment. And that's not just Florida State specific. That's all these teams.
Yeah.
Even Tyler Grubbs did it. Louisiana Tech was out there doing their best, trying to give us a game. So I just, that's another reason that it made me, like Dabo was trying to paint Florida State players. I know he didn't say it was their decision, but he's trying to paint Florida State as quitters and not wanting to play the game when they really wanted to play the game. And that bothered me. It will always bother me because it was a year unlike any other. And I know I got caught up in it a few times because they were so bad on defense. And the finger wag still bothers me. But and you guys know which finger wag I'm talking about. It still bothers me. But overall, even though they were 3-6 and it was a horrible defense, we got to watch a college football season. We got to watch some cool plays. Jordan Travis was fun to watch. LaDamian Webb was fun to watch for a little bit. Tamorian Terry caught a touchdown. Marvin Wilson blocked some kicks.
Josh Kando had a pick six.
Kando had a pick six. Yeah, they made some plays. But we got to watch a college football season. Like Aslan said, to that point, on New Year's Day, we got to watch a bunch of good football games. Well, maybe they weren't good football games, but we got to watch football. The Cincinnati-Georgia game was a good football game.
Let's go now.
Not because the Dogs won, but it was just a good football game. But yeah, the fact that I can tweet about coaches just being complete idiots when it comes to game management, I shouldn't lose sight of how cool that was that I got to tweet about that. Like, that certainly beats the alternative. Like when the Falcons almost seemed like they were trying to challenge Tampa and win that game. I was really upset, but I'm like, you know what? At least I'm still getting to watch a football game. So yeah, I really do appreciate that. I hope we've said that enough. We probably didn't throughout the course of the season. But yeah, I really do appreciate the fact that we got to cover a game and cover a college football season. Because the alternative would have been awful.
Speaking of awful, what if they expand this playoff? I like it. I did a quick count, though, Corey. We've had 20 games now. We've had 20 playoff games. Started at 14.
Yep.
We had 20. 6 of them have been great college football games. The other
Florida State, Oregon.
Right.
Florida State, Oregon was probably number one. Look, now that game, but see that's sports though, right? Like Florida State and Oregon were I know people remember the score. They were evenly matched.
That was a good game for a little bit.
It was a 2-point game at halftime. It was a 2-point game in the middle of the third quarter, and then Dalvin couldn't hold on to the ball, and things went south quickly. And then Jameis threw the crazy whatever that was fumble pick six thing he had, and that was the end of the run. But I feel like, yeah, Alabama would have beaten anybody by a lot.
Yeah, they Notre Dame. I'm sorry. Yeah, Notre Dame belongs.
But what if the 4 or 5 game was Texas A&M Notre Dame? That would have been a good college football game. Now Alabama could have played whoever, Coastal Carolina, in the opening round and beat them by 100. But I feel like if you add 2 more games, there's 2 more chances to actually have good games.
That's a good way to look at it.
I guess that's the kind of way I looked at it. Like Georgia-Cincinnati, if somehow that would have been a 4-5 game. That was a really good game. It would have had a lot of drama. And it also adds, like these bowl games that aren't playoff games, who cares? Like that's one thing Jimbo was straight up right about. Like it devalued the other bowls to the point where I forget they're on.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh wait, I forgot Texas A&M and Carolina were playing. And until whenever that was, until I saw everybody tweeting about it. But yeah, like it just devalues all these things. But if the Texas A&M Carolina game had been a playoff game, well then everybody's involved. And so I that's why I would like it to get to 8. Because yes, Alabama, the number 1 team, is probably going to beat the number 4 team or the number 8 team similarly. Oh. But 4 versus 5, I don't know, man. I think those could be fun. 6 versus 3. You know, Clemson having to play whoever they would have had to play as the 7th seed, Florida. That could have been a fun game because Florida wouldn't have had half their team opt out. Yeah. So I think they'll go to expansion, and I think that's the reason I want to see it because you're right, man. They've had 20 games and they all seem like they're just straight up blowouts. But like we wouldn't have to watch Alabama, Michigan State if it was expanded. Michigan State would have had to get beat by the 5th seed, and then whoever that 5 seed is, TCU or somebody. Maybe they give Alabama a game in the semis.
All right, you're right. Yeah. Okay, look at that.
There you go. You feeling it?
I went from isolationism to open borders right there. Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's do it. Man. Give me 8 teams.
That was a quick pivot, man. That was like an Allen Iverson crossover pivot.
It makes sense. When you make sense, it makes sense. Shout out to Georgia, though, for handling business.
Sure.
I'm glad that happened. I don't know. I'm not a fan of the little guy in this instance. I'm sick of all this, all these group of 5. We don't belong.
Yeah, but see, if it gets expanded, they would get their shot. Yeah. And what difference does it make if a 2-loss or 3-loss SEC team gets that 8 spot and plays Alabama, or if undefeated Cincinnati plays Alabama? Yeah. The result will be the same. In fact, Cincinnati had some guys opt out of that game too. Like if Cincinnati was at full strength, I don't think they handle Alabama any worse than Notre Dame did. At least, I mean, you know what I mean? Like that game felt like non-competitive, and I feel like the Cincinnati-Alabama game would have felt non-competitive. But at least they would have gotten their shot because I think some of it is deserved, man. It's not all just who's the best. It's deserve. And I feel like if you go undefeated, you deserve a shot to be proven that you're not that good. And I think we could all get behind that. I think we could all get behind an undefeated Group of 5 team getting the chance to play the big boy. And think about the ratings that would get. I really think the ratings, I guess Alabama Notre Dame probably was off the charts, but I just think people would really be interested in 17 if UCF, as the 7 seed, gets to play Georgia in a game that really, really matters. That would have been exciting to see, I think. So I get what you're saying. I've never been a fan of the little, like I was completely against the Boise State stuff back in the day, whenever that was, 13, 14 years ago, when everybody talked about them should be playing for a national championship, maybe 10 years ago. I was completely against that. But now that we have a playoff, I just feel like if you get to 8, you can give those guys 1 seat at the table all the time. Otherwise, why are they even playing? It's not like anybody's wants to play Cincinnati, so they have to play the league that they're in. So what's the point of them even playing a season if they have no shot ever to win a national title? In basketball, you get a George Mason to the Final Four. You get a UConn winning 2 out of 4 years or whatever it was, with not even a very good UConn team. They get a chance to prove it on the court, whether they belong or not. Just football, it's like it's these people, the powers that be, decide, nope, we're going to give it to all these blue bloods because we've looked at the recruiting rankings.
And the TV ratings. Yeah,
Alabama,
Ohio State is going to crush. That's like the best possible scenario for ESPN.
Absolutely, yeah. Who are you going to be rooting for? That's a tough one, right?
It's weird. I've somehow come around that I really like Nick Saban now. I used to not be able to stand him. I really like Nick Saban now.
Have you seen the guy on Twitter that does the impression?
Oh gosh, yeah. He does Ogeron too. Yeah.
He does a better Ogeron than you do, and you have a good one. Yeah. But his Saban is unbelievable. It's really, really good.
But yeah,
he did one. I just saw it because he did one about the headphone thing.
Oh yeah.
Where he got mad through the headphones off his head.
Yeah. I'll probably root for Alabama. I'm telling you, Ohio State, they are the most obnoxious fan base in the country, and then Florida's number 2. But Ohio State, they're terrible.
I feel like, if we're all behind Alabama, you know what I mean? Like not like we're behind them, like we're supporting them, but Alabama's ahead of everyone. And so if they win another one, who cares? I legitimately can't tell you how many Sabans won. 6, 12?
I think
I've lost count.
6. This would be a 6th, I think.
At Alabama or overall?
At Alabama.
I mean, that's crazy. I don't know. I couldn't tell you he won 5, or it feels like he's won 9. So what's another one for Alabama? But Ohio State, to validate them, that would I'm not a big I'm with you. And they are a pretty annoying fan base. So I like the fact that they've only won, one national title since I've been born. Is that true?
2.
When was the other one?
Tressel and Urban Meyer won.
Oh, yeah. So they've won 2 since I've been. Well, that's
sorry, Miami fans. Yeah. It wasn't a flag. Shouldn't have been a flag.
It was a flag. The guy just couldn't get it out of his pocket. Yeah. Come on, you mauled him. He should have been kicked out of the game for that pass interference.
Although
it was over the top.
When we had no football and we thought the world was going to stop spinning, like back in April or May, I remember they were showing all the national title games. I remember seeing the Fiesta Bowl, Ohio State, Miami, and it wasn't nearly as egregious. 19 years later, live when it happened, I'm like, oh man, that sucks for them. But womp womp, it's Miami.
What do you mean? It sucks that it took so long for the flag to come out?
No,
just the call itself.
Just the call itself. I'm like, man, that wasn't a flag. Like in real life,
I thought it was.
I
thought it was pretty close. But what was funny, I think I've told this story before. I don't know if it was to you or on headlines, but I when I worked at the Gwinnett Daily Post up here in Georgia, my boss at the time, the sports editor Todd Klein, was a Miami grad. He actually went to school at Le Batard. It has a bunch of awesome Le Batard stories. But so I was over at his house watching the game, and he had this victory gopher that anytime Miami scored a touchdown or they won a game, he would go hit it would do the song from Caddyshack, I'm all right, and it would spin around. So he had enough time for that ball to be incomplete, the Miami fans celebrate, to walk over to the top of the TV, hit it, and watch the gopher start spinning before he realized there was a flag. And I remember saying, wait, I think I just saw a flag. And I think he thought I was joking because it was so long. It was like 8 seconds later. Yeah. But I was correct. I did see a flag.
You were. So,
and I'm not going to say I was upset by getting a needle him a little bit that, oh, by the way, your team, the game's still going, Miami fan.
Yeah, they'll never be back there. I don't think you're ever going to. You're never getting back Miami. I don't think you're ever.
I think everybody could make a run at it. Like I think there's about 30 to 35 teams that have the potential to make a kind of run at it, especially if they go to 8. That they could have one magical season. But there's zero chance Miami's ever going to be the Miami of old when they were just cranking out literally 20. Well, they had like 14 first-round picks on one team and 27 draft picks overall. Those days are gone. But they might still be able to have a magical year every decade or so.
Like, are you going to talk to Brady about UCLA basketball the way, like, Brady will talk to his child at some point about Miami football? Like, yeah, it was unstoppable. And
they're like, wait, Miami? Sucked. Like Miami from Florida? Yeah. No, they used to win championships. Yeah, no, they came to the ACC and people thought they were going to run it.
All Canes Conference, baby.
And Brady's kids will be like, well, how many ACC titles have they won? Well, 0. That doesn't matter. It's only been 44 years. Or however. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I guess I'll have to, like, my dad telling me about Wooden will be me telling my son about, or my grandson about Jimmy Johnson and Craig Erickson.
Oh, sweet Jimmy. All right, well, let's break for today. I mean, shoot, basketball not looking all that encouraging right now at the moment. Maybe we get meat on the show. I think, is baseball going to be our respite? Are they going to be our rescue raft?
Yeah, I mean, they should be okay. I wonder what they're going to do with baseball games. Seriously, like if there's a contact tracing going on with a baseball team, number one, you have 35 or 38 guys. So I don't feel like if there's a positive case, that automatically means that the team can't play.
Yeah, because
you have literally. I think you usually have 28, and now this year I think Florida State might have 35 guys on the team because of they were allowed to come back because of last year. So not only that, the fact that you have more players than you've ever had, but also it's baseball. It's not a contact sport. So I wonder if they'll be a little more lax with cancellations or postponements with positive cases unless there's an actual outbreak, unless they can't field a team. And it'll be more like the NFL. Like, hey, man, call up some kids off the practice squad. You got enough players, right? Like if the whole pitching staff is wiped out, got it.
They'll have to figure out. I think that's going to be the big thing, is figuring out a way to, like, keep the bullpen from, like, the pitching staff from coming in contact with each other.
And they're going to have a bullpen now. Like, they had probably the best bullpen they've had in a long time this past year. We wouldn't know it because they only played whatever they played. But all those guys are back, and they got new guys. So they, like I said in that scrimmage I watched, whenever that was, a couple months ago, every guy that came in out of the 12 or 14 guys that pitched, all of them but one was hitting at least 91. It's just a new day in baseball. But so yeah, we should get meat on. We could get meat on. We could do anything, man. We could get some of the football coaches back on. I think we can talk to them.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll do that. We'll also do Renegade Express later on the week. We'll take your questions because they're better than the questions I come up with spontaneously to ask Corey.
Shout out also shout out to Justin Fields. That was a really incredible performance. I think we were all rooting for him. That was I still, again, you guys know where I went to school. That the fact that he was doing that in a playoff game for Ohio State instead of Georgia just boggles the mind.
I almost tweeted out, is there any one program team that has just been lacking that one special player as much as Georgia has a quarterback? But I'm like, well, you guys had Matt Stafford.
No, he doesn't count. They had him. I guess Stafford should count. But he wasn't the dynamic. He was just an incredible thrower. He wasn't a dynamic runner, too. They had him. They had him, and they let him go for Jake Fromm.
We had him. And we let him off the hook.
We let him off the hook. We knew who he was. We let him off the hook. So yeah, it's cool that Justin Fields is crushing a Clemson defense when he could have been at Georgia. And said, hey, but Georgia got Stetson Bennett for half the season, so that was fun. That worked out. And Jake Fromm, is he even in the NFL?
No, I think the Bills, but I don't know if he survived on their roster.
I don't know if he's on the team or not.
Yeah. Should Skalski have gone targeting? Are we losing
Absolutely.
football? Is football just becoming a namby-pamby game now?
You can't tag. No. I hate it. Look, they should have been targeting, but he shouldn't have been ejected. I can't understand. We have just, as a college football society, as a college football world, have just accepted that, if you get this penalty, you're ejected. And if it's in the second half, you're ejected from the first half of the next game. It is the stupidest, most punitive rule in the history of sports. It makes no sense. A kid that gets a flagrant 2 in basketball doesn't get ejected for the next game if it's in the second half of that game.
But it's probably not going to lead to concussive damage maybe down. And that's the thing.
Sure, but I mean, you could do some serious damage if you undercut a kid playing basketball. I get it. But number one, the penalty itself is punitive enough to eject someone. And you've seen it. We've all seen it. 95% of them are clean hits that are just unfortunate. They're not trying to take people's heads off, and they're leading with their shoulders. Their helmets just hit first. That happens. It happens. So to just say arbitrarily, who made that rule? What person had the idea? Because it had to stem from one person. The germ of the idea was in one person's mind. Hey, guys, I know we want to get rid of targeting, and we want to protect. What if we ejected them for the next game? What if we ejected them for the rest of that game if they got a targeting rule?
That sounds reasonable to me. I don't know.
Jim, I like that.
I think it sounds like, yeah, all right. Then these kids will be more, they'll be more cautious. They'll be more aware of how they're placing their head.
Well, number one, that's not true because we see it every game. It hasn't worked. It's like we're not getting into this conversation, I promise. But people still get murdered with the death penalty around. You know what I mean? It hasn't become that much of a deterrent. This targeting rule hasn't become a deterrent. And it's so many of them they're just unfortunate. It's a fast game. And I know that you can't, as a referee, determine intent, but you can in slow motion replay, in my opinion. And I just think we've just accepted it. You know what? Yeah, that's just how it is. We're all going to complain about it. Yeah, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be an ejection, or most of us, not Aslan, but most of us will complain about it. Yeah, that's crazy that it's that, but it just goes on. Why can't there be an uprising to say this is the stupidest rule you guys have and get rid of it? Keep the targeting. We're all for safety. But that kid should not have been ejected from that game. Remember Ohio State last year? They got a kid ejected against Clemson, their best cornerback. Yeah. For a hit that he did. I mean, they lost their best cornerback for the season on a ball that really maybe not should even been a penalty. It's incredible. It would be like every time a baseball pitcher hits a batter, he's ejected. Whether it's intentional or not. Whether it's a glancing blow in his knee or it's at his head. If the ball gets away from you and you make a mistake and you actually hit a baseball player in the ribs, buddy, you're out of the game. Kids make mistakes. Sometimes their head isn't where it's exactly supposed to be, but to just be so punitive anyway, sorry. I'm done. I hate it. I hate the rule. Yes, it was a bad hit, and it should have been a penalty. And by letter of law, yeah, he should have been ejected. It's too bad. Look at hit what you see, right, Aslan?
That's right. Also, I think a Charlotte offensive lineman in the transfer portal.
Let's go.
Is going to announce. Easy. I mean, he's not coming here. I mean, he might. I think he's supposed to announce on Monday. I'm pretty sure. So as you're listening to this, maybe it's already dropped. Maybe it's good news. Maybe there'll be a video of Michael Langston and I talking about it. But in any event, do stay connected to warchant.com. Promo code warchant30 for 30 free days of access. And we will be back later in the week with a Renegade Express edition from all of our subscribers providing questions on the Tribal Council. For Corey and Mazal, thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant presented by Zaxby's. Indescribably good.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.